Hello, tech writing writers. Just wanted to weigh in on lesson three, forum part one, which was focused on the CSE page on scholarship design and how chapter number five related to that, and also how well you were able to construct a memo following the principles in chapter seven, and I wanted to just tell you all that you did quite a nice job on the on this forum. I really appreciated the work that went into the memos. The memos, those of you who took time to construct a memo, did a nice job of following the guidelines in chapter seven, and not just that, you did a nice job of contextualizing and setting up the beginning of the memo for the most part with some sort of introduction or context for the readers, following the prompt that we created for the forum, where you were this outside consultant weighing in on the effectiveness or lack of effectiveness of this website. So you're getting it. You're getting this idea of how to consider your readers and purpose. And then most of the suggestions that were made in the memos themselves were quite nice. I was in some cases would like to see a little bit more specific reference to some of the concepts from chapter number five specifically, and this might be a good opportunity just to touch base on that. We'll sort of be coming back to this overview, this sort of overarching principles of chapter five throughout the course, which basically just asks you to think about how to direct readers through a document, which is the heart of technical communication, taking people through complex activities or relaying sort of complicated information for a wide variety of audiences that you got to keep in mind, and how you might do that. And there are very specific sort of concepts or ideas that are kind of universal here. You'll notice that one of the things they ask you to think about, the basics of document design, that we're looking, whether we're on a screen or a page, at contrast, alignment, proximity, size, and repetition as some of the guiding principles. And then the chapter takes you through several specific examples, which I'm not going to go over now, but otherwise you should think about chapter 5 as kind of a nice reference that you come back to again and again throughout the course, to make sure, maybe as a check, that you are designing reader-friendly documents. They give examples of a paragraph of material here that's not really that easy to follow along, and then it's, the main elements of the chapter that are really stressed are the use of headings, bullets, indents, the effective use of white space, and how you chunk or organize the information in a sequence that will make it reader-friendly. And that's basically the most important sort of concepts you need to gather from chapter 5. The idea of being consistent throughout the document, so that we're not sort of following in one sort of structure at the beginning and then switching gears halfway through, and that we're using the space on the page to really direct the readers. We're making things perhaps in more short, condensable forms, or to use that technical term, chunking is not really a technical term, but and really how you might put illustrations and information together in ways so that they support each other and they're contextualized and there's not confusion. But really, the most in-depth detail of the chapter is about the use of headings, layers of headings, levels of headings, and how to sort of divide up the document in ways that make it reader-friendly. Towards the end of the chapter, they really have a lot of very specific examples. Design distinctive headings, how to keep the language parallel so that you're not switching verb tense from graph modifications, make data changes, to insert or delete columns, but that these headings have descriptions that are kind of in the same verb form or the same grammatical form. Modifying a graph, changing the data, inserting, using the ing throughout every sort of instance in that example, is how you keep parallel language. Don't overdo it with the number of heading levels. Make sure that you are very consistent. You create a pattern, you stick to it. Use size. Many of you pointed this out in your memo that on the website they could use different font sizes to make a greater impression. And there might be rules regarding the numbering of headings if it's in a meeting, in a report, or in minutes or something that has to be charted. Numbering systems are listed, and then there's discussion about page numbers and running heads over the top, and whether to keep a rule between headings. Like here, they suggest that you have a rule, as we see on this page in the form itself. There's a rule or a line across the page, and you can see in my own instructions here, I've tried through the use of color, through the use of centering in certain cases, in the use of dividing up the form into different sections. I never read Chapter 5 before I did all this. This is just what you try to do to take sort of a complicated task. And what you did here was you were asked to go look at a website, you were asked to compose a memo, you were asked to look at information relevant to Chapters 5 and Chapter 7, and compose a forum post and have some sort of grading criteria. All of that information needs to be conveyed, and so that's what I'm trying to do with my page design here. As far as the scholarship page itself, one of the things that we do in class when we go over this exercise, and I'm sympathetic to CSE. This is not an easy task. There's a lot of different audiences for this sort of document, so it's tricky. But some of the things that we point out to in class that are just automatically sort of problematic and difficult for the scholarship office here is that they've got such different audiences that they're trying to sort of address with this one page. The page design is not too bad, it has kind of a pleasing view to it, and it's gotten better over the years. But one of the issues is with this readership. You have several categories of students. You have first-year students, that is, students that are currently in high school or elsewhere, and they're applying for these scholarships. And they actually have to apply for a scholarship. They fill out a form. And then there's this term, current students, or continuing students, or we don't know what the right term is here. But current students, those would be students that have just finished their freshman year, or are juniors or seniors, and the kind of scholarships that they get. There's a different process for them. And then you have transfer students. Now, the transfer students and the first-year students, they have to fill out applications. The current students don't have to fill out applications. The incoming first-year students have a different scholarship deadline than the transfer students. And then, in the middle of it all, there are also scholarships that are not really assigned by the scholarship office, but by these outside entities that require separate applications. It's hard to sort of put that all together. And then, as many of you pointed out in your memos, the links that are on this page oftentimes lead to other links and layers of links, and it gets very confusing very fast. The other thing that is kind of confusing that we talk about in class often is that there's a note that to regarding scholarships received from outside of CSC. Well, this is kind of, this is language that is maybe intended for outside donors, or for people who are giving scholarships, or for students who already have a scholarship, and they're just being notified here about what they're supposed to do to record that scholarship with the scholarship office. It probably is not language that belongs here on the page that is for people coming here to try and figure out how to apply for scholarships, right? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't know where you would put that language. It's important language, but it doesn't seem to fit right here. It's a completely different audience. And then there's an outside scholarship notification form, and they are telling you what to put on a memo on a check. None of this really relates to someone who comes to the website. Think of the first-year student or their parents coming to the website. I need to apply for a scholarship. What do I need to do? That's the first sort of readership that is kind of the most tricky. So there you get your scholarship application. You click on it, and there's some language here that explains this. But then there are other scholarships listed, and these are scholarships that you fill out separately. And what they're trying to say is that there's a whole process that you go through as an incoming student where you are given an account and you fill out the application online. Yeah, so it's a completely different process versus these scholarships down here. It seems to me they really need to separate that language there from the rest of the page to make it clear that these are scholarships. Somehow, I don't know, they need language that says the following scholarships require extra applications. They aren't part of, you're not automatically considered for these when you first apply at CSC. Then on the same page, notice that we clicked on the scholarship applications, and here's this language, current students. Now think about that if you're a student. You're a high school student applying for a scholarship at CSC. Think about that. Would you not say, well, I'm a current student, and I've already sent my paperwork, and I'm enrolled at Chadron State College, so I'm a current student. What does this mean? No longer required to apply for general. What's a general scholarship? I don't understand what really any of this language means, because that nomenclature isn't probably the best. Continuing students, current students, parentheses, those finishing their freshman year, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, or something like that, non-first year students coming in from high school, whatever. That needs to be clarified, and that whole sort of system is quite confusing for a lot of students at CSC. I know from conversations we've had in class about this. So those are the basic issues that we run into with this design. And again, I'm not criticizing they have a very difficult task in front of them with the scholarship office, but many of you mentioned in your memos some really good ideas for how to clarify this, both with page design and with the content itself. One of the examples I wanted to point to that I thought was quite good was a post by let me see if I can find it here. The post I was looking for was from Katie. I thought she did a really nice job with her overview. Many of you did a very fine job, but I just thought hers was a good one to look at because it summarizes things so well. Here you'll see in her memo, she actually began her memo by outlining all these key concepts that you see from Chapter 5, and she presented this information, and then she presents the criteria to evaluate the organization, the style and design, and you'll note that almost all of these come directly from Chapter 5, and then in her memo, she has very specific recommendations, as many of you did in your memos, how to manipulate both the information and the page design to make it more reader-friendly. For example, consider a hierarchy of headings. Obviously, that was a major part of what Chapter 5 discussed. Margin control, where to put the contact information, aspects of the website to remain as formatted, the elements that seem to be working. And here we saw, as many of you pointed out, this tricky sort of idea of having to deal with communication with the incoming freshmen versus the current or continuing students. I was so pleased that most of you picked up on that being sort of a confusing issue. So really good job on this forum. I appreciate everybody's hard work, and I think it's a good exercise for us to consider as we're working on project number 1, where we have to take people through these complex procedures and directions, and I think that you are all off to a great start.